Hey everyone, it's JPC again, and this is episode number 7 of Back in My Day. In this podcast, I attempt to answer questions I get sometimes during stream or sometimes in Discord, but with a little more structure, thought, and intent than my kind of flash responses. I also get to take some reps at storytelling, which has been a to do of mine. If you're enjoying the content, please like, comment, subscribe. It helps me out a lot and gives me a little virtual pat on the back. Also, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. I'd love to hear from you, and thank you for watching. All right, let's roll that intro. This week, I want to talk about overcoming burnout, which, oddly enough, I experienced quite a bit of over the course of the last 7 days. And I'll kind of go into a little bit of that. So, very topical week for the podcast in all reality. Um, I think for the most part, this is something that a lot of people experience, and um, I want to talk about what I do, and as well as things that I know I could do, but maybe have never actively done it or have gotten around to it. Caveats. Okay, so obviously, I'm not a professional. Um, if you are experiencing large amounts of stress and burnout, you should definitely consider seeking assistance, be it just a confidant, be it a spouse, friend, whatever, or professional. So don't assume that what I'm offering is perfect for everybody. These are obviously things that work for me over 40 years of figuring out how to de stress myself. Caveat, caveat, caveat. The things I'm going to talk about are probably a little bit more specific to the last week, as those are top of mind. But I have experienced burnout of many things throughout my entire life, including relationships, including friendships, um, school, work, you name it. It's been experienced, and these things have worked for me, and it's okay to accept that you're burnt out. Let's talk about initially what is burnout. I like to kind of compare two things, right? It's physical and emotional, and sometimes you can have them both at the same time. I consider emotional to be the mental side of it as well. So not just emotions, but being inside your own head and reacting to that, because your emotions will react to the things that you're kind of dealing with. Um, So physical burnout obviously is things where if you're not sleeping, you can easily get burnt out on a lot of things physically. If you're working out too much, they have exercise bulimia, I believe, is um, is what it's called, where um, you eat and then you immediately go work out because you feel like you have to. Well, if you eat 3 times a day, if you eat 4 times a day, if you eat 5 times a day, you can work out too much from those type of things. Some people go and work out regardless of kind of what's going on with their body. Injuries still try to work out through it. So you can have physical burnout from pushing yourself too hard. You can have physical burnout from just not getting enough sleep. Um, Obviously, I think that's something that people have experienced in what some way, shape, or form um, in their life. But then the other side of that, the emotional side, the mental side, want to talk about those things and acknowledging it. So when I was first getting married to my wife, I was in school, and I was actually in a psychology class. It was a basic, psychology 101 class. Nothing too um, advanced. And I was actually I was engaged, and we were doing all kinds of things to get ready for the wedding. Right, you're trying to get healthy. You're trying, everybody wants to look their best, working out, dieting, all these things. And my wife and I had also just recently experienced injuries from ultimate frisbee, because we both played ultimate frisbee. And I bring up the class because the professor gave everybody this kind of survey, I guess. It's kind of a worksheet, and it listed out multiple different things that can impact your stress levels. It can impact your potential burnout, and getting engaged is on there. Starting a workout, ending a workout, so any change to your physical activity, starting a diet or ending a diet, um, as well. And I mean, there's a lot of things, injuries, just getting an injury and coming off an injury. So anything that you're kind of experiencing, also changing from that. So starting and ending, um, a kind of, I guess, stimuli, um, can can put pressure on you physically or emotionally. And we're kind of listening through them and went through the whole survey. And she was asking everybody like, "Hey, what's your number? What's your number? What's your number?" And I can't remember what it exactly was, but my number was 10 times higher than anybody else in the class, and for good reason. Like I said, I was engaged, and we were doing all these things, and we were listing, um, was listing all those things out. Starting school is on there, right? Starting school is on there, and getting done with school, getting a new job is on there. All these things were on there, and I always remember that survey because I actually was I did not want to continue going to school. I was done with school, and um, I was finding ways to skip class, and that's not the type of person I am. And when she kind of brought that up, and we kind of acknowledged that, um, acknowledging that it's not the school that you're tired of, that it's something else, makes it easier to continue to do it or to power through it, or to find a way to take a break if you need one, which I'll kind of talk about that later. Um, so I always remember that survey, and this week, so just to kind of put it on the table of kind of what happened to me this week. So my wife, my son, and my daughter all tested positive for COVID. My wife and my daughter were the only two that kind of were experiencing the symptoms. But because they tested positive and I had been in the house with them, or been around them, I also had to take I couldn't go into work, so I was in the house, but I had to be quarantined with them. So it was like a reverse quarantine. They got the house and I got the office, which I'm not too terribly upset about because I like being in the office. But um, it's one of those things that just makes it difficult to do work from home. Anybody who says work from home is great, then they probably don't have kids at home with them, because you can't get your job done and take care of your kids, especially younger kids. You still need to know what your 7 or your 8 year old and your 5 year old are doing. Um, they can't reach the cups, so you can't tell them to go get their own drinks and things like that. So there's many different things that you still have to be active and present with kids that they're at home. And they were with us for the whole week they were at home. And kids get stir crazy very quickly. But well, again, we can't take them out of the house. They're, one is sick, the other one's also tested positive but isn't sick. So we're in this weird kind of cabin fever situation going on with the kids. Now, to add on top of that, and to a lesser extent, we got a new dog, and she's an older dog, but she got spayed, and she is also going stir crazy. Um, she is not allowed to play with our other dog, so Callie and Pepper. Pepper's the new dog. So Pepper's not allowed to play with Callie because she has stitches. Pepper's not allowed to go outside and run because she has stitches. Pepper's not allowed to do anything but basically lay on the floor because she has stitches. And we've had to keep her in the crate when she's sleeping. And so she makes a noise. We have to take her out because we don't want her using the bathroom in the cage. So sleep has been non-existent because of sick kids, but sleep has also been non-existent because of the dog. So you have kind of three things um, pushing into our sleep schedule. My wife has a very demanding job as well, so she's kind of half being sick and not working, but half mentally knowing that when she goes back to work, everything's going to be backed up a week. So she's stressed out about that. I'm not able to actively get everything done that I can. So all my work is getting backed up to a much lesser degree, of course, because I have a team that works for me, so I can get things done through them. But all in all, like this very specific, right? I want to emphasize that this is my specific scenario, but all of those things push me to, I'm not sleeping well. I'm not able to focus on things. And then every night I still want to play. I still want to get my time in. So I'm talking about burnout in general, but I want to talk about how it's impacting my play. And I just played this morning, so it's Sunday. I played on stream this morning, and I'm I feel it. I feel like I can't move properly, I can't think properly, I can't aim properly. But I'm aware of what's causing my burnout, so I'm not just taking time off. I can power through it. I'm not too worried about losing. Of course, I want to hit diamonds, so there's the challenge within that. But for me, I'm aware of what's happening and what's causing me to feel the way that I'm feeling, and then I try to compensate. So that's kind of how I'm dealing with those things, but that's my specific burnout, and how the physical can impact the emotional, and the emotional can impact the physical, um, and it kind of all can be encompassing at the end of the day in terms of my burnout. The second thing I want to talk about is kind of trying to acknowledge it, right? And like I said, I kind of know what's going on. So with this second um, uh, point here, what's causing your burnout? And I think it's very important to take a moment and ask yourself um, what's happening in your life. I go back to that survey. That survey was very important, and I don't know. Maybe I can find it and I'll put it in the description. But don't hesitate to kind of go search like things that impact stress, and you'll be surprised at some of the things that are on there that are in your life and that are impacting you right now. And I think you need to try to find the source of your stress, and then find the impetus to that source. What's driving it? There can be external factors and there can be internal factors, and a lot of times they kind of mix and blend together. Um, so just think about finding ways to acknowledge what's happening. Um, you got exams coming up and you have to study for them. You're going to be stressed until your test is done, regardless if you're actively studying or not. Um, you have a big project at work. It's the same thing. That looming to do on your list will drive stress and pressure, and it's extremely important to acknowledge those things and decide how you want to deal with what is essentially going to impact everything else. And I gotta go back to impact everything else here, because since COVID hit, my wife and I have had to actively remind each other to be a little bit more um, patient with the kids. The stress that happened right when COVID hit, right back in 2020, and then subsequently until kind of school kind of opened back up, um, everything was being piled on. We had to do work. We had to teach the kids, because the kids were either doing something virtually and we had to again sit with them and make sure that it was getting done, or we were doing it ourselves. We had no time for anything we wanted to do at that time, and we took the kind of what happened during that period as lessons learned for going forward. We both were impacted very negatively in terms of how the pressure of our lives caused us to treat each other and to treat the kids. And it's nothing terrible, but we would snap pretty quickly. What are you doing? And not in a tone that is beneficial to somebody under the age of 18, probably, right? Like there was um, it was a lash out of kind of not understanding how you're not getting what I need from you. I need you to go pick up your room. Why are you not picking up your room? And it was never a dialogue when we're not stressed or we're not pressured. It'd be a dialogue. Hey, what did I just ask you to do? And then they would respond. You go, okay, are you doing that? No, I'm not. Okay, what did what do you need from me to help you do the thing I asked you to do? Because it's really important you go do the thing I asked you to do. Um, that dialogue and that communication, and helping them understand why we're asking them to pick up their room or to put away their clothes or whatever it happens to be. We typically 9 times out of 10 are having that kind of dialogue with the kids, But as the stress and pressure built up, there was definitely the tone was, why aren't you doing what I said versus what's going on with you, right? And it wasn't that, let me ask you what you need from me. It was, why aren't you doing the thing that I need from you? And that it became a very selfish conversation. Um, I bring all those things up because um, all that was because of stress. That we were tired of each other, my wife and I. We just like, I want you to stay in the living room. Don't come into the office. This office is my safe space. The kids would go to bed, and it would literally, like, my wife and I wouldn't talk to each other. And we had to walk through everything that's going on, and we had to organize our lives to reduce some of that stress. And we've always had a really good relationship in terms of, if she needs her time, if she wants to go hang with friends, if she wants to go hang with family without the kids, right? Like, we'll find time to do that. And I don't typically go out and do those things with friends or family, but I do want my time in the office, and I want to be able to shut the door and not have the kids come in here, or my wife come in here, so that I can have my time to decompress with whatever's going on. And we had to start scheduling those things. I think it's very, very important to give yourself that. But the only way you can give yourself that is to find out what the source of your stress is, acknowledge it, and work around it. And again, sometimes you can't do that yourself. Sometimes you need somebody to help look into that for you, and that's okay. So number three, the last thing I want to really talk about is, how do you solve your burnout, right? So we kind of talk about those things, and I'll kind of go into my experience and my situations, and what I'm doing. And again, I'm kind of going back to Valorant because that's kind of where all of this conversation starts from, and what I'm doing to keep myself wanting to play more, because that's again the impetus of the podcast is around gaming and Valorant. So I'm specifically talking about that, and um, and what I do. So this can apply to everything. And again, we found, like I mentioned before, we found ways to help our relationship out by doing some of these things, and it helped a lot. So all right. So number one, you got to find the problem, right? And I mentioned that before, is like, try to find the source. You have to find the problem. So I'll do a conversation that I had from um, a few weeks ago, and what all subsequently happened in terms of Valorant. But I have an employee who is about to be out on maternity leave. I have a new planning season landing right now. The planning season is always a stressful time because we are planning for next year. We're putting all the pieces together for next year. So, like I said, when there's a deadline, that up until that deadline is done, you're going to be stressed around it. Now, so we submit our plan at the end of July. So, starting March through July, I have this looming project that I'm constantly working on, and I have to acknowledge that. Again, I mentioned to my wife, and I let her know I have my project that's on, so it's something that we have to figure out. And sometimes I have to work on the weekends. Sometimes I have to work late at night, to finish to check a box, because we want to keep things on schedule. So with the the employee going to be out for a period, plus the project, and then we've had a slew of stomach bugs in the house. It feels like every other weekend one of the kids is being impacted by this bug that's going around. So putting those things on the table, and then sports started. So my daughter plays baseball and soccer, and my son plays baseball, um, and I help coach those teams, the baseball teams. I don't help coach with soccer, and I help at practice and at the games on the weekends. So the combination of those things, so that new thing starting, sports, multiple sports, the sickness, the project, and the change to my team, even though it's temporary, there were four things that were just put on my plate kind of at once. And um, I started to feel like I didn't have control of my energy. I started to feel like I didn't have control of my emotions. And again, I kind of mentioned how that impacts my physical on that side as well. If I'm not in control of my emotions, I'm probably not in control of, like, when I practice, am I able to practice the exact way that I want to practice? And it does impact it. I can feel that. So what I did was I took 10 days off. Kind of, and you can look at that in my tracker. There's a whole period. I was not sick. Um, I was not unable to play, but the pressures of getting to diamond, regardless of what anybody says, um, I'm playing the game to have fun, and I do constantly have fun. But me trying to get to diamond the first time, even if I D rank or whatever around it, hitting diamond the first time is very important to me. It is pressure I put on myself, kind of subconsciously, because I want to prove out what Hujin is doing is viable. And if I can hit diamond, I think that shows a lot of people that it's entirely possible to play 2 games a day, be consistent, and you can get to this, right. This is a successful project, a successful series, and that's my own thing. That's not anybody else's fault, and I have to acknowledge that. um, I put that on myself. Wahujin has never put that on me. He's always said, as long as it takes, you will get there. It's going to take longer at times, with things going on. So I want to make that very clear that I put that on myself. I really want this to work out because I believe in it. But with all these things going on, I had to take 10 days off. I took time off, and I said I wouldn't play again until things clear out. That means the kids are not being sick. Sports are in a more organized situation. They're not just starting again. Um, the project is a little bit further underway, based off of how I can kind of organize around my team and kind of delegate the things that need to be done. So I needed 10 days to do that. It took me 10 whole days to do that. Um, that was my solution, taking a break. And when I came back, I immediately won like 4 games. I felt physically and mentally and emotionally reset and rested. So it was um, very positive decision to do that. What I also did was I ensured that I found time to practice still, because practice is not stressful for me, even if it took me 2 or 3 times as many rounds to accomplish my targets. I could do it whenever I wanted to. I could wait till the kids went to bed, and that was my, decompressing, because I'm not worried about winning. I'm not worried about interacting with people. It was just me versus the bots, me versus the DMs, which are very peaceful to me. So I was able to keep those things up. I knew that that was not a source of stress for me, but the comp was obviously, ranked anxiety and things being what it is. So that was my solution to those things. So when all else fails, find a way to take a break that isn't completely cutting things off. I think that taking a week off of work during project time, would have been a viable thing as well. We're going on a couple family trips, so I can't really afford to do that. But I have never hesitated to take a day off. That I hear people call them mental health days. I don't know how active that is amongst other companies or whatnot, but mental health days. Um, I think they're very powerful for de-stressors. Fantastic. But the problem with mental health days, with my role, and I think with a lot of people's roles, is the work doesn't usually go away. The work kind of piles up. So you're giving yourself a emotional and physical break. But when you get back, the work is still there. So mentally, you're probably not giving yourself too much of a break, knowing that it's just going to pile up. So find a way to remove that. I cannot take a break from my kids being sick. Right? That's as a parent, that's impossible without putting extra work on my wife, who is also stressed. So we can find ways to balance that, where we take, trade off, trade this way, whatever. You go Tuesday, I go Thursday, type of deal. So those are viable options in terms of family stuff. But at the end of the day, like, if you're a decent human being, you're probably not giving up on your family, right? You're not trying to take a break from your family. Um, and I think we do a really good job of balancing that out and giving each other me time, her time, whatever it is, in those situations. But that's an option for giving yourself a mini break. But I can't take a week off of being a dad. That would be irresponsible. Um, yeah. So I think end it there, right? So we'll recap a little bit. Ultimately, I think that you got to find out what your source is, what's causing your burnout, um, and acknowledge what has changed recently, either ending or starting. Um, those things are very powerful. And again, I don't know if I'll be able to find the list because it was something that was in a class, but um, don't hesitate to Google, right? What are different things that can cause stress? What are different things that can cause pressure? And you will be surprised at what you find on that list. Literally, changing your diet it causes pressure. Ending a diet, success or failure, regardless, it causes pressure. It's a change to your body, and your body physically feels it, regardless if you mentally are aware of it. Um, Very important. And then um, figure out what your responsibility is with those drivers and find a way to solve it. And sometimes it's okay to just take a break. It's okay to find a way to responsibly give yourself a break completely. Find a way to turn your phone off and lay in bed for 24 hours, right? That's totally fine, but you got to make sure that you're mentally freeing yourself from those pressures, or else it's just kind of, you took a break but you didn't really solve your stress. So it's important to solution around what your drivers are, but you got to know what your drivers are first. All right, that's everything for this week. Let me take a look here. I got to find out what is up for next week. We are talking about dealing with anxiety. I'm kind of excited to that because I'm seeing anxiety in a different light, playing Valorant than I had before, and acknowledging kind of some of the things that cause me problems outside of Valorant due to pure anxiety. Um, Performance wise, right? I want to do a good job. I want to do a good job for somebody. I want to set a good example, whatever that is. I don't need to necessarily win. I don't need to necessarily um, uh, be better than everyone. But if I'm not setting the proper example, then it feels like something that I'm doing wrong, right? And I think that that's where some of my anxiety comes from. Anyway, we'll go into that next week. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out, and good luck in your games.